Hi everyone, Richard here from Calvin Wazoo with another video, and this time it's a contest entry. Beautiful day outside, as you saw from the intro. Very different from some of the other intros that I have done recently. So yeah, it's a contest entry today with Michael Johnson, I believe is his name, over at Poetry on Plastic. He has reached 5,000 subscribers. Whoa. I just recently, after 1 year, celebrated 100. And he's got 5,000. Well, he's been at this a lot longer than I have. And he's got a great channel. His breadth of interests and musical tastes is really expansive. A lot of talk about classical music and records, classical records. But I've also really learned a lot about some very obscure Japanese bands that I am on the hunt now for. For example, Pig, he's talked about. And I do have, an interest in some Japanese fusion, Japanese math rock, and other Japanese psychedelic rock. So yeah, I really enjoy his channel. And so you should check it out. I'll have a link to his contest video in the Down Under, so you can check out the contest and also check out his channel. So the quick run on the rules is, you subscribe to his channel, which I already had been. And then, you got to put a hashtag in for Poetry on Plastic 5,000, 5K or something like that. That's going to be, you'll see that in the title of my video anyway. And then he's got 6 questions, 5 of them directly related to vinyl. And, as is usually the case with me, it's so hard to pick just one record, for each question. And I don't want this video to become really long because, like, the last time I checked, he did an update on his channel and he already had like 40 or 50 entries, and there's still at least another week and a half or so before the contest closes. So that's a lot of videos to watch, Michael. Anyway, so let me get started with the questions so I don't make this long, which I have a habit to do anyway. So the first question is a record for a band that it was like your first live show. And, that was an easy one for me because, Frank Zappa is a major focus on my channel. I mean, I've made the incredible commitment that I am going to review every album in Frank Zappa's discography, and I don't even have every album in his discography. And I'm doing this one album at a time right now, pretty much going through the vinyl phase because he's got lots of releases that are CD only. But anyway, yes, this was the very first concert that I ever saw, was Frank Zappa. And because I am so interested in all things Zappa, I have links to these concert venue calendars that will go back in history. And so, yeah, I was able to look up the exact date of the show because long ago I lost my ticket. That was April 28th, 1974 at Ferris. It was then Ferris State College in Michigan. I think my ticket cost me $4.50. And that was the year I turned 16, 1974, but because it was in April, I wasn't 16 yet, so I couldn't drive to the show. And I lived in a rural area. I lived about 20 miles away from the Ferris campus. So I'm trying to remember, I think it was my father that dropped me off And then, he stayed in town there in Big Rapids, Michigan, until the show was over. And then when the show was over, I came out to where he was going to be waiting, and then got into the car. It was the tour where this album, well, Overnight Sensation had also been released, and but it was a really great show. I thought for sure that Terry Bozzio was the drummer because they did a routine. They did the Titties and Beer routine, which shows up on the New York album that was released a couple years later. But no, it was Ralph Humphreys, I believe, who was playing drums on that tour. But nonetheless, Zappa was, trying out that material, which is what he often did. He would be playing songs and developing songs on the road long before they ever appeared on an official release, which is part of the reason why he hated, he really hated bootleggers. Him and Bob Dylan both are probably among the two artists that are the top two artists in terms of really hating bootleggers. Anyway, so that was my first show. See, I'm already rambling on so much about that. So the next one is, what was my most listened record when I was 17? All right, so 17 would have been 1975 into 1976. And, checking some sites, I figured out that the two records that I definitely were listening to the most came out at that time. There was Neil Young, Zuma. I listened to this seriously, every day, all the time. I can still pretty much sing along with it because I just know all the lyrics. But another one that I was listening to also just about every day was Physical Graffiti. That came out, and just, an album that really just blew my mind. I didn't always listen to all four sides, but seriously, it was a great album. And some of the more obscure songs on it, I liked. Everybody, of course, loved Kashmir, but there were some other songs on this record that I was like Boogie with Stu and Black Country Woman, that I just really liked those songs even more than Custard Pie and the ones that everybody else was rocking out to. All right, so record that was a genre entry. So that was hard because I was trying to think what genre, and I was trying to think, okay, what was my first jazz fusion? What was my first jazz? And so again, there were two that stood out. And the reason I think I have such a broad taste in music is largely because of my mother. And when I was about 5 or 6 years old, I would listen to her records. And she had this giant book of classical music. And I'd be listening to, Peer Gynt and the Hall of the Mountain King, listening to the soundtrack of, the movie Fantasia, but not realizing until later that the movie was created around the songs, not the songs created to go with the movie, that these were pieces that had existed, So she definitely introduced, in one of them, I tracked this down finally, a copy of this. I, remember listening to this when I was just a little boy, and it was an amazing record to me because, one, I like Peter Ustinov's voice, but the other thing is that it opened my mind to the notion of how music can tell a story, not just be a sequence of pleasing sounds. So that was a real eye-opener. But then more recently, I would say, would be this album, Slint, Spiderland, because I ran across the video for this. There was a documentary, Breadcrumb Trail, and I've done videos about this, about the band Slint, and that introduced me to this notion of math rock, something I had really never heard about before. And that really opened the door to many other bands that I began acquiring records, such as Don Caballero and Polvo. And then I even managed to find out about, now I'm trying to think of his name, Cornelius, a Japanese artist, who is also quite recent. And Takagayo, is that his name, that his given name? But I've done the video about his music. So that kind of, introduced me into this whole genre of math rock, which I found really, really interesting and I enjoy a lot, possibly because of my background with Frank Zappa and also Captain Beefheart. That I'm very fascinated with styles of music that don't fit the typical genre box, of pop music. So anyway, those are my examples for a genre entry. Now, a record that I would select to show off my equipment. I've got some decent equipment. I don't have, really great equipment. My speakers I've had since 1980 something. My amplifier, I got that. It's a Denon. I got that in 1990 or something like that. But when I do want to, show off the high quality sound with people, there are two choices. So first choice is Bob Dylan. And this is an original master recording by Mo-Fi for the freewheeling Bob Dylan. So I would select that. But if they're not a Bob Dylan fan, then I would go with the original master recording of Dire Straits' Brother in Arms. Both are just incredibly great sounding records. And they do highlight, the Bob Dylan, seriously, when you're listening to it, it's like he's in the room playing. It's just, the recording is just that good, which, really makes the record that's being offered as a prize really, really, really enticing. All right, so the next question is a horrible mix that I still love. And, there's lots of examples, out there. Everybody talks about how bad the Maggot Brain vinyl releases are, particularly if you got the four men with beards. And I agree on the with Michael on the Iggy Pop Raw Power. So I'm not going to use that one because, that's what he used in his video for starting this contest. But I will use this one. This is the Stooges live at Goose Lake in August of 1970. So it's sounds like a bootleg, but it's not really a bootleg because the original tapes were discovered by a descendant of the guy who was operating the soundboard. So it's based on a soundboard recording. And he gave it to the folks at, and now the label is escaping me, who worked with the tapes, and Third Man Records. All right, Third Man Records. And so they worked to clean them up. So it doesn't quite qualify as a bootleg because before they went ahead and released this, they contacted Iggy to get his permission, because it looked like that they weren't going to release it without his permission. And at first, he refused permission, but he eventually changed his mind. I have done a video, much more in-depth video about this record as well. But this, it sounds like a bootleg. It's a really, really rough recording. But I am such an Iggy fan that I love this record. It's despite all its flaws, and there are plenty of flaws. There's virtually no editing between songs, not like your typical live album, which will, remove, if there's a big delay or a lot of other, whatever's going on, sound checking or whatever between songs. None of that's eliminated with this. So, I mean, it's raw. And for people, if you're not a super fan and you're particular about the way your records sound, you're not going to like it, even if you like Iggy Pop. But of course, I had to pick another one too, and that is this one, Enema by Tool. This is an unauthorized release. I happened to see it in a record store in Columbus, Ohio, and I have wanted this record because I know it's great, and I've never heard an original pressing, so I don't know how much better it would sound on an original pressing. They are so expensive that there's no way I'm going to drop that kind of coin for it. This one, was affordable. I mean, I don't even think it was $30 and it's a double set. But it's a bootleg and an unauthorized recording, and the sound quality is, it's not all that great, but I have it and I love it. So, all right. So final question is an audio upgrade that I've been thinking about. And yeah, I'm thinking, for a while I was going to upgrade my turntable. I have an entry-level Fluence turntable that does really super well. But then last year, rather than getting a new turntable, I thought I'm just going to upgrade the cartridge. So I went from the Audio-Technica up to a Nagaoka, and I've been really happy with that upgrade. I'm still thinking about a turntable though, and then Fluence came out with their newest one, the RT85, and that's like $500. Before, I was thinking, yeah, I'm willing to spend up to $1,500 on a turntable for a turntable upgrade. But the Fluence is like $500, and it's just like a killer turntable. So I'm thinking, yeah, that's what I might do. But the other thing, I live in a high-rise apartment building, and it's problematic that I cannot always listen to the full power of my system. It's frustrating. And I don't know if I'm ever going to live in a single family home. Certainly would love to. Long story short, I did so much moving around in my life and my career that I never lived any place long enough that it never made sense for me to get a mortgage and buy a place. So I've rented all my life, and now I'm 62 years old, and unless I have a lot of cash, no bank's going to lend me money for a mortgage. So I have maybe resigned to living in multi-unit housing, in which case I'm thinking also about, I've heard of headphone preamps. So I mean, I've got semi-decent headphones that I spent around $80, $90 on them, so they're pretty decent. But maybe what I need to do is upgrade to some better headphones and then get a headphone preamp. I've heard that might be a way to go. So anyway, these are the answers to my question. I'm hitting 20 minutes. Oh God, that's going to be long. I'm sorry, Michael. I'm sorry. But anyway, check out the information in the Down Under for connecting with Michael and finding out about his contest. I'll put some links in there to some of the other videos that I talked about in my entry. So there's links to there. I haven't done any videos yet on the Zappa albums Apostrophe or Overnight Sensation, but I have my Zappa playlist, which has what I've done so far, and some of the other things that I have in there. Thank you for watching, and good luck, Michael, with your channel. It's a great channel. I enjoy it. If some of you out there, I mean, he's got 5,000, I'm sure most of you are already familiar with his channel, Poetry on Plastic. But if you're not, you should check it out, especially if you also enjoy and would like to know more about classical music recordings, because, he's wonderful at that. In fact, he plays in an orchestra, so he knows what he's talking about. So have a great day, folks, and as always, pray for the people inside your head, for they won't be there when you're dead.